We're going to have a look at the timeline element. So after dropping an element on the page, we're just simply going to access the dashboard, and we're going to scroll down to the timeline element, select it, and you can see that by default you will always start with 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. You can add as many elements as you like simply by adding a new element, and now we have 5 elements. Elements can be moved around simply by grabbing them with the handlebar in the middle, and then just drop wherever you want. When you access the settings, you can see that here you can modify the date, or you could probably add some custom text like an event name maybe or something. So we'll say, for example, a simple date, just like that, some random date here, and we'll do the same. We'll just type something, new date, another date, and something else, and yet another date, for example. So now you can see that all of those areas below it, they're going to be content areas where you can drop your content in Weebly. So if, for example, before we didn't really see it, how it was working, but if you added a new element, you will see that it was being added at the top. Maybe you want to add it at the bottom, so you simply grab it, scroll down, and add it as the last element. So we'll set it here, and we'll call it last element. On the left you can find your styles, where you can see the timeline color, which is this vertical line here. You can set it to the color you want, obviously, and then you can change the color of the dot and its small line here. You can also increase, decrease the opacity if you want to. Then next we are looking at the timeline date styles, which are those, obviously, where you can change the color, change the font if you want. So let's set this for Poppins, for example. You can also include a custom font if you want. You simply add the name you want, and this would be a font that would be loaded on your website. We're going to stick to the font family here that has been uploaded with the My Font library. You can increase or decrease the font size, just like that. Maybe to 15 pixels. You can include some letter spacing if you want. You can add a border color, but before adding a border color, you will need to add a border, obviously. So now you can see that we have a border here. You can add some border radius, making it rounder, just like that. You can include a background if you wanted to, but you need to make sure that you set it obviously to a full opacity, just like that. I don't know, this color maybe just as a preview. Increase or decrease the padding, which would make this date look taller, the box at least, just like that. And the other settings here for stylings are the elements, where you can see the background element, where you can style the color of the background element. You can add a border if you want to, so the same settings here. Modify the border radius. If you would want to have squared borders, you simply set it to 0, and you can increase or decrease the padding if needed. So those are with the settings. So now when we save this and go back to our Weebly editor, you can see it appearing here, and then you simply need to drag in all the elements you want. And then once you go back to the editor, you can obviously modify and move those elements around if you wanted to. Element, event here, and you can add text, buttons, links, all these elements from the sidebar, of course, images and all those things. So look here, more content, and then when we publish it, you can see here loading this, a small preview with a small animation as well, where you can see this happening. So when you keep scrolling, you can see those elements animating in, and something else, and yet another date, and we arrive to our last element. So this is the free but nice timeline element included in the OctoMono bundle.